gotta get that thing fixed. Hi, I'm the Space Quest historian. You ready for some more cool hidden shit from Space Quest 3? I sure am. Now, these are just some random cool things that me and our team of dedicated code spelunkers in digital archaeology have uncovered, which doesn't necessarily involve the debug mode, so I've put these in a video of their own. And at the risk of sounding arrogant or presumptuous, I'm like 99% sure most of you didn't know this stuff was in the game. So if I do shout one out that you've seen before, go ahead, leave me a comment, and tell me what a giant bag of space dicks I am. Okay, we'll start off with an easy one. I think I've mentioned about a million times before that what I think is really bizarre about Space Quest 3 is that you can finish the game without ever knowing why you're doing so, because the whole plot dump of the game lies in this Astro Chicken arcade machine in Monolith Burger, which is entirely optional. So let's say you go through the entire game without playing Astro Chicken, without seeing the secret message from the two guys. Now you're just playing the part of a space hooligan who goes around destroying shield generators and infiltrating software companies because he got bored? Sidetracked? Maybe he's a bit of a sociopath? I don't know. Oddly enough, the game actually does contain a few alternate messages if you decide to skip the entire plot dump. When you go to Ortega to disable the shield generator, you get different messages when you look through the telescope. And when you dump the thermal detonator into the shield generator, and when you then go back to the telescope to survey the damage you've just caused. Oh, and speaking of Ortega, once you drop that detonator into the shield generator, the game tells you to hurry off the planet before the whole thing explodes in a giant earthquake. And you'd think this was on a timer, but no, you can actually walk around as much as you want, for as long as you want, and you will be safe. The game actually counts how many screen changes you've made. But in a truly Galaxy-class dick move, it'll only hold this against you if you try to go back to your ship. So again, you can walk around as much as you want, but you will die on the screen with the aluminum mallard if you have made too many screen changes. How many screens? Well, I'll let Dark Soul from the Eshcrates Discord show you, since he's the one who found out about this.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and that's a death.
Oh, and Dark Soul also had some fun with this giant snake creature thing on Flea Hut. This thing is really just here to prevent you from wandering off into the desert, and it will kill you if you stay too long on the screen, but for some reason it also has a boatload of messages for things you can try out, and I'll let Dark Soul show you.
So now it's time for some light-hearted fun with the local fauna on Flea Hut. Because it turns out that this not so well-known creature has way more possible actions than was previously thought. And as you have seen, if I actually try to use the bridle on the snake, the game actually docks points from me for referencing that silly puzzle from King's Quest 2. Other than that, it should be noted that if you actually take the time to pull one action, you have an opportunity to run away. Admittedly, this message got scrapped from later versions of Space Quest 3.
And yes, he is right. If you try this from your GOG or Steam collections or your old CD collections, you just get this generic message when you try. So, well, I guess they did have a heart. And while we're on Flea Hut, I think I may have mentioned a few 100,000 times in the past that there are two ways to defeat the Arnoid droid. You can either dump him in the gears here, or you can lure him under this overhang and let these pod things eat him. If you let the pods eat him, you're supposed to use the ORAD on a stick you can buy from Faster to retrieve his invisibility belt. But here's a thing that I didn't know that the dudes in digital archaeology discovered. You can actually use the pole you get on Ortega to get the belt. So let's say for some reason, instead of just going back to Faster's shop and getting the obvious item, I don't know, maybe you don't have enough Buckasoids because you sold the gem for less than optimal price and you spent it all playing Astro Chicken, I don't know. But you can actually hop in the aluminum mallard, fly off to Ortega, and provided you have the thermal weave underwear, get the pole, and then come back to Flea Hut and get the belt that way. But there's a catch. If you're relying on the pole to get the belt, then you'd better head back to Flea Hut as soon as you've picked up the pole, because if you go all the way up and drop the detonator into the shield generator, then that crevice in the rock will have formed, and you have to use the pole to jump across it, and you will lose that pole for good in the process. So that means you're essentially stuck in what we call a dead man walking situation, in that the game will continue, but you will be unable to finish it, and you may as well start over. But here's a cool little thing I found out when I was capturing footage for this. You know how the game will tell you need to stand in a certain spot to do something? Like if you try to pick up the belt with the ORAD on a stick, you'll be told to stand in a very specific spot, probably to give the game another chance to dick you over with another death. But you'll notice there's a bit of a leeway. Roger just sort of moves into position to do it quite right when you stand in sort of almost the correct spot. So if you try to pick the belt up with the pole from Ortega, well, this works. How about from over here? Okay, how about from way over here? Okay, that's too far. But here? Yeah, okay, that works. Now what's really amazing about this is that Roger seems to be able to find his way around obstacles to get into the spot he needs to be in, but if you try to use the mouse cursor to move him around, then whenever he comes up against something blocking his path, he'll just stop dead in his tracks. In fact, later Sierra games would proudly list this ability to walk around obstacles as a new and exciting feature. So what this tells me is that there is some rudimentary pathfinding in the game, they just didn't put it into the mouse cursor controls. Maybe because Roger occasionally does this weird little moonwalk when he finds his way over to where he's supposed to be, but hey, anyway. Finally, let's end all of this on a family-friendly note. In most of Sierra's parser games, if you type something naughty into the parser, you'll get a message back saying, "Ooh, don't say bad words. Ooh, we're a family company." Yeah, family company my ass. Yeah, sure. Sierra wanted to cultivate this notion that their games were supposed to be able to be enjoyed with the entire family, but yeah, Space Quest was never family-friendly. I mean, what's family-friendly about Roger popping an artery on a sheet of metal and doing this blood-soaked dance before dying with blood still gushing from his corpse like a fountain? Or this lovely little image of him soaking in lava fondue? Let's face it, Sierra already had a game called Soft Porn under their belt. Not to mention the remake of that game, a little game called Leisure Suit Larry. So the whole family-friendly thing, yeah, it was a smokescreen at best. Case in point, if you type swear words into the SQ3 parser about 25 times, by the 26th time it'll have enough of your potty mouth and will fire right back at you with this line: "Hey trash mouth, don't be saying that shit." And this is pretty funny, especially considering that Sierra didn't have this thing against games swearing at the time, and this is a very American thing I've noticed. Violence is okay, but saying a naughty word, oh, that is just about the most awful thing you can do. So for the word shit to have actually slipped by everyone at Sierra at the time and survived in the game to this day, and yes, you can still trigger this message with your copy from Steam or GOG, is kind of impressive, actually. In fact, it goes even deeper than this. Scott Murphy originally wanted the game to save some of the bad things you put into the parser and then have the game randomly displayed during your playing it. The idea was that it would shame youngsters when all of a sudden the game would just randomly fire back dirty messages they'd put in, preferably when their parents were looking over their shoulders. But this was never implemented. Instead, the game just gives us this nice, courteous ahem for the first 25 times and then trash mouth. Don't be saying that shit. And the really cool thing about this trash mouth message is if you keep using bad words, this is the message you'll get. It's not just a single occurrence. This is now your punishment. This message will now display every time you say something bad, which I think, as far as punishments go, is actually kind of cool. Okay, so that's it for various dirty little secrets hiding in Space Quest 3. I hope you've enjoyed these 2 little videos, because next time we'll be setting our sights on Space Quest 4. And among other things, we'll reveal a mystery behind a secret that's been boggling the minds of Space Quest fans since the 90s. That's all to come, but for now, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you around the Chrono Stream. Bye!